Now we're going to give you a very general overview of something that's quite important, something that's very important. So we talked earlier today a little bit about the nursery, about the practical things like how our values and practical things about the daily routine and just looking after children and talking to children, and of course that there's the care and the education that come together in our nurseries. We also have some more theoretical things, which I suppose that there is a practical side, but there's also some theory behind it. And these are 4 different areas we're going to talk about as an overview that are very important, and they're things that are legally important. So we have each of the 4 topics, there is at least one law. Do you understand what a law is? There's at least one law that relates to it. So there are 4 different things. Even though I'm going to talk about them at the same time, actually it's 4 different things. And sometimes people mix them up, which is why we have this diagram, which is the umbrella of responsibilities. So the idea is that it helps you separate the 4 areas. That's why we have this diagram, to explain it a little bit. We try to make it clear. And so today we're just going to explain what they are a little bit, and later you will have training on them. So this is more an introduction. So the areas of responsibilities, these are your responsibilities. So everyone as a teacher, as an adult, has these 4 responsibilities. And then at the top we have the manager of the nursery, but each of us individually also have these responsibilities. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. So if you look at the diagram, you'll see that we've got these 4 areas. So the areas, the title of each one is at the top. So we have safeguarding, that's one area. Then we have whistleblowing, which is a second responsibility. Then we have health and safety, which is a third responsibility. And then we have the prevent duty and British values, which is a 4th responsibility. They're different. And then underneath each title, we have a description. And then we have, so the description, so for example, with safeguarding, what does safeguarding mean? It means that we protect the children from abuse. That's what it means. So we've got the title and then the description. And then we have, in the grey cloud, is what is the risk? So on the grey cloud for this one, we have the 4 areas of abuse. And then underneath we have examples. So for the first one, the risks are the 4 areas, and so there's only 4 risks. And so we've got a lightning for each one. So we've got physical abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. And we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail. And then, so what is our job? Our job is this responsibility is to protect the children. So we've got the umbrella. So the idea of this image is that the children are underneath, and we're holding the umbrella. Our job is to hold this umbrella. That's our responsibility, and the responsibility is safeguarding, which was the title at the top. And then how do we do that? So we've got then 4 different examples of what we do. And then at the very bottom, we've got the laws, like why the government gives us this responsibility to do. So there's 2 different laws that give us these responsibilities. So with this diagram, this is not our nursery. This diagram, I made this. Well, two people in the nursery made this diagram, but we did not decide to give you these responsibilities. The government has given you this responsibility. So that's why we do this training. Also, it's a good idea. It's a good idea to protect children. It's really important. And unlike the language, like the Mandarin, we've chosen to do that. We don't have to do that. That's why you're here. That's why we're excited to have you in our program. But it's a choice. This is not a choice. We have to do this. And inspectors can come from Ofsted. Is Ofsted on this? No, we should probably add Ofsted to our vocab list. So Ofsted is the government official inspector. It's the office for standards in education or something like that. It will be on your vocab sheets by the time the video is finished. And so Ofsted exists, it's part of the Department of Education from the government, and they send inspectors and they come and check the quality in the nursery. They check how we look after the children, how we protect the children, and they can ask you questions on this, especially on this. They'll ask you maybe about the children, but they often ask teachers about this, especially teachers they think maybe they don't know it. If they see a new teacher, a young teacher, a training teacher, or maybe a teacher from a different country, they go, is this a good nursery where everyone understands their legal responsibilities? Or does maybe not everyone understand? So there's a real risk. So this is not just some idea. It's very, very possible that you will be asked questions about this. So today is just a summary, and we will give you training, and then probably you'll have regular review conversations with your manager about this, I hope.
She tell me some the specific of the 4 areas of abuse, and give us some example from her practice experience. For example, the physical abuse, we can observe the children's behavior and just guess or we can observe their behavior and to see if they have this 4 abuse or not. And for example, record is very important. If we think maybe they have, we will have Excel or form to record the time and the body, the time and the how to say 身体的部位 the part of the body part. And the second, and if there have some absence, we should ask the reason. And the third is if we think they maybe have some safeguarding problem, we have to share our concerns with our room leader and other teachers. And the fourth is 2 persons policies. This is very important. If we are alone, we have to open the door and tell other teachers. And we must go to if the children have to go to the toilet, we must go with another teacher, never alone. And these 4 abusements is very important. And she gave us 4 examples from her practical experience. That's all.
Great, you did really well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that's a very good description. Thank you very much. So everything you said was right. So safeguarding, it's our duty to protect the children from abuse, and there are these 4 areas of abuse, and these are the things that we do to protect them. So if an inspector were to ask you, what is safeguarding, your answer should be exactly this. Safeguarding is protecting the children from abuse. There are 4 areas of abuse. They are physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, and emotional abuse. If I'm worried, I will talk to the manager or the safeguarding officer. So that is really important. If somebody asks you, what is safeguarding, you say, it is protecting children from abuse. There are 4 areas. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, emotional abuse. If I'm worried, I talk to someone about it. That is a minimum answer you have to give. If an inspector asks you the question and you say that answer, they probably won't ask you any more questions. Because they see you are confident and that you know it. Maybe they'll ask you more questions, but probably not. Probably, if you're confident and they go, you know, no problem. Next question. Probably.
I think, Lee, when you had the experience of an inspector asking you a question.
Yeah.
Or were you able to answer like that? Did she ask more questions?
No, only one question.
And what was her question?
I forgot.
But I knew you were able to answer.
So, I'm going to describe these a little bit more, and then, just I think for the video it's quite nice, I'm going to ask you all the same question. And the answer is the one I just gave you. What is safeguarding? Safeguarding is protecting the children from abuse. We have 4 areas of abuse. They are physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, emotional abuse. If we're worried, I talk to someone about it. That's the minimum answer. And then, and I'd like you all just to say the same, exactly that. The same answer, all of you. And then, in the classroom, we have this poster. You should have the bilingual version in your classroom, probably that size. If an inspector asks you the question and you get nervous, you go, let me show you. And then you walk to the poster. And you say, safeguarding is protecting, and you use your finger and you show them. Safeguarding is protecting the children from abuse. There are 4 areas of abuse. Here are the 4 areas. So you don't need to be nervous. You have the answer in the classroom. But I would like you to know all of this off by heart. So even without the poster, you can answer. And then you know that in the real one, if you're nervous, there is the poster. But you have to know these answers off by heart and understand them. So you will go on in the first 2 or 3 weeks, you will have a video training on safeguarding. Later, you'll go to a classroom for 2 days. 1 day, 2 days?
Yeah. Depending on how we think 2 days.
The safeguarding training.
1 day.
It's 1 day.
2
So
days first.
you'll have a video,
Sorry.
and then later you will go in a classroom somewhere else, and you'll have a whole day training on it with a quiz at the end. So it's very important. So is there anything I can add? So with physical abuse, it's marks on the body. Now some children are very active and they fall and they have marks on their body, and that's normal. More with boys than girls, can happen with girls as well. You get some very active girls, let's be equal. But so if you've got a very active child, and we know the children, you go to the playground or you go to the park with them every day. You know which ones are very active and the ones who fall and get up and climb. And if a child like that has a bruise on their knee, you know what the knee is? Of course we ask the question, but we're not so worried. That's quite normal. We want to ask the parent, oh, there's something on the knee. And they go, yes, he was climbing and he fell over. We're not so worried. We fill in a form, existing injury, but we're not worried about it. But if the bruise is on the inside of the knee, I don't know if you can see on the video, on the inside of the knee, that's more unusual. If you fall, you don't really get a bruise there. It's not impossible. Maybe on a swing, the swing could hit you. It's not impossible, but it's unusual. So anything that's unusual, we must remember, and we talk and we fill in the form. It's the same. So here on the inside, in the middle of your back, very unusual. If you fall, you normally don't fall like that. On the inside of the eye, the shape of the face is designed that you can fall and protect the eye. The eye is very important in human survival, and so our bodies have got a shape that protects the eye if we fall. It's, again, not impossible. Maybe a door handle, it could hit you, a child, depending on the height of the child. You could be hit on the inside, it's possible, but not from falling. If it happens once, we fill in a form, we discuss it, probably we're not going to be worried if it happens once. Maybe, it depends what the child says. If the child said, my dad got very angry and hit me, then we're worried. But if the child says nothing, or the child says, oh, you know, I hit the chair, and the parent says the same story, we write it down, we're not worried. If it keeps on happening, it happens many times, then we're worried. Or if the child says something, then we're worried. So it's very important that we listen and we write down. So that's physical abuse. Is there a pattern? So there's the location. Is it a strange location? And is there a pattern of behavior? Another one would be if I was trying to get something from here and the child goes to protect their heads. How is their behavior? Are they expecting me to hit them? Why are they expecting me to hit them? So there's the actual bruises and then there's the behavior. So we have to look at that, and you'll have a training that explains it a bit more. But that's physical abuse. Sexual abuse could be maybe a child has too much information about sex. And maybe their behavior is a little bit strange, maybe they're scared of adults. And maybe the way that they talk or the way they behave, it shows that they have far too much information about sex. So that can be something we have to be worried about. There could be marks, of course. We change nappies. Do you know what a nappy is? Is it on our list?
Yes.
Nappy.
No,
Okay. So we change nappies. You'll be changing nappies, not the first few weeks, but you change nappies. Maybe you notice some very strange marks. So if you notice something, don't just ignore it. Talk to one of the teachers about it. So we know girls can get infections easily if they don't wipe properly in the toilet. So, but still, we want to talk about it. So that's sexual abuse. Neglect is the most common type of abuse. You get it in two types of families. Well, you can get it in any family, but the two most common types are very poor, uneducated families. We don't really have any families like that. And you get it in very busy professional families who are working lots of jobs. So maybe there are too many people looking after the child. There's nursery, maybe there's a nanny. Do you know what a nanny is? So maybe there's nursery, there's a nanny, and no one really has time to look after the child. So is the child really being looked after properly? Or are they just, everyone's too busy and no one really notices that there's an ear infection and they can't hear you properly, but no one has enough time with the child to notice. So that would be neglect. No one has time to notice important things about the child's health, for example. And then the last one, so if we notice that a child, it's unusual. We had it one time, the child wasn't being washed enough at home. I think the parents thought the nanny did it, the nanny thought the parents did it. Like, there's always somebody, and no one was washing this child. Very sad. But we had a meeting with the parents and we said, have you noticed your child smells? And they said, oh no. We said, your child smells, you need to wash. We said, no, the nanny does it. The next day they came in, the nanny doesn't do it. That's right. You're the parent, you're responsible. Make sure that someone is looking after your child. Very uncomfortable conversation. You will not have to have this conversation. But if you notice something, tell the manager. And she will have the conversation. Well, she'll probably speak to me and then she'll speak to the parents. And the last one is emotional abuse. So that would be saying, a parent, for example, saying, I don't love you. I didn't want to have a child. I wish I didn't have children. you make my life terrible. I have no time for myself. It's too noisy. I wish I didn't have you. It happens. Hopefully not with our children, but it happens. So with that, maybe that child is very closed, very, very quiet. So our job is to say, is this child shy? Or is this child a victim of emotional abuse? It's not always easy to tell. So we have to be curious. So if you notice anything, you think, this child is not loved. This child thinks everything is my fault. So for example, you drop something, if we're children, and I go, it's not me, every time? Am I scared of physical abuse, or am I scared of being shouted at? So of course you have to tell a child when they do something wrong, but if the child lives in fear, that's emotional abuse. The child should not live in fear. So what do? We have these, so we talk as a team, we talk to the manager, we talk to your room leader. If a child if we notice a bruise, either the parent tells us or we notice it, maybe when they're getting changed to go to bed, and we take their clothes off, we notice there are bruises, we fill in a form. The existing injury form. Have you ever seen the existing injury form? In the training or in real?
In both.
In both. I think we should show you the form. Can you bring it up? So in the nursery it's on paper, but we have it on the computer as well. So we can just so that you've seen it at least once already. You've seen it once. So we've got the day at the top, the day and the date and the time, the name of the child, the date of birth. If you're watching this on a video and you don't have the form, pause the video and ask someone for the form. Okay, so the name of the person reporting the existing injury, if you've noticed, it will be your name. And then the relationship to the child. So it's possible that the parents told us. So it could be the parent's name, and then we put parent. Or it could be you've noticed, so it's your name, and then the relationship is teacher. Name of the practitioner supporting the form. So maybe you've noticed, but somebody else is helping you with the form. So that would be the other person's name. Maybe the manager helps you, or the room leader helps you. Maybe she's doing really writing the form, but you're the one who noticed. So, and then was this existing injury notified at the start? So did the parents tell us or not? It makes a difference. If it's abuse, maybe they don't tell us. Maybe they try to hide it, or maybe they just forget. They think it doesn't matter. So maybe we're worried, or maybe we're not worried. But we write it down so that in the future we know. And then, I don't know, did the practitioner notice this during the session? So did we notice, yes or no? And then we just describe what happened, like how we noticed. And then we describe the injury. I don't know. Then we describe the injury, yeah? And then we say who was there. So were you on your own? Is there a witness? So maybe you call a teacher and then two of you have seen it. And you describe the injury. So who was there, you describe it. Was it so bad that we needed to get medical help? Now, this does not have to be abuse. We write this down for any injury. So it could be quite obvious that it's an accident. And the child tells us, I was playing on the swings. But maybe it's got worse and we need to put some cream or get a doctor. So we just describe, was there medical, did we need help? Do we have any other notes? So you will never have to fill this in on your own. But I think it's nice, it's better to see it before than for the first time when you've got a little bit of emotion and maybe the child, you can see it hurts the child. So it's easier now, calmly, to read the form together. And then there's another page. So then we put the name of the person who reported it, and then we sign, and then another person signs. And then we have this map, which is a picture of the child. And we mark with a pen on the form where the injury is, on the hands, on the head. And then there are some notes. So be really precise. Where was it? And then the size. So a bruise, like how big is it? A good example is to find coins, to find English coins, and see, is it the size of the small coin, this medium coin, the biggest coin? How many? And were they all the same size? To be as really precise as possible. If someone drags you really hard, the bruise will get bigger than the fingers. So we want to have an idea, is it the size of a finger bruise that's a bit bigger? Or if they're all the size of a thumb, well, you don't have 5 thumbs, you have just one. So if the size is a little bit too big, you think it's not possible for it to be fingers, even though we know the bruise is normally a bit bigger than the finger. But if it's if it's the right size for fingers, that's important. And the parent says their friend hit them with a stick. You go, really? With one stick, and you've got 3 bruises that are the right size for a finger. We're not allowed to take photographs. It's forbidden by law. So we have, and we can't get a tape measure and start measuring it. No, we have to be natural with the child, and then afterwards, when we fill in the form, that's why the coin size is quite a useful way to write down the size, which we don't need to measure it. And then the shape, is it round, is it not quite round? So when you're drawing, try to draw the right shape, and then write what colour it was. Was it blue, was it purple, was it brown, was it black? Because that helps professionals know how old the bruise is. Do you know what a scab is? Scab. Is there a scab? So a scab, like if I cut myself when I'm cooking, the first day it's very open, and then afterwards it becomes a bit white, maybe, and then afterwards there's like something that grows on it, a little bit on the outside. That's a scab. How do you say scab in Chinese?
Scar.
No, it's not a scar. Can you look it up?
那个东西是吧？
应该是在之前的
老的，
那个硬的，
现在不是 it's before the scar, right?
Before the scar. Now you don't have it.
不是查一下字典，我手上还有没有？
Children, if you have it, it grows. Children like to play with it. So children play with it often.
Yeah.
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 They try to take it away. So is there a scab, for example, that also shows us how old it is? Is there a scab and a new one? So we put that. Is it clean, or is there something inside it? Like if you were running in a park, maybe you can see there's a little bit of, and if we see that, probably we need to clean it properly. Is mobility restricted? Like if it's a bruise here, can the child move normally, or does it hurt to move? So we don't ask really questions, but we just notice when they're moving. Is it not natural, or is it natural? Yeah. Exactly. And then the manager does this last section. So this is called the existing injury form. So the first white bubble here says record existing injuries and concerns. That's this one for anything that's physical. If it's emotional, we don't have a form for the other ones, but we would just write it on some paper. So unplanned absences is the top right bubble, unplanned absences. So why do we do that? Probably, if a parent hit a child and there's a big bruise, probably they won't come to nursery. They're not going to come to nursery and have to fill in a form. They'll just tell us our child is sick. So that happens, but we write it down. We write why they're away. And then maybe the child tells us something. So we write that down. So if there's a problem, normally it doesn't just happen once. So if every time the parent says they're sick, and then afterwards the child says, Daddy was very angry, we have a record. Share concerns with a safeguarding officer, that's the manager, safeguarding officer is the manager. And you tell her, anything you worry about, you tell her. If you're not sure, it's a question, you tell her, or you ask her. Because maybe you have a question, and maybe you have a question, and maybe you have a question. And actually the manager goes, why are there all these questions with the same child? Because maybe she hasn't seen anything, she's not in the classroom. And maybe each example is little, but 10 little examples, we need to investigate a little bit. And the last one is the two-person policy. So all the examples I've given you today have been examples of abuse at home, but it is also possible to have abuse in a nursery, in a school, in a church. Abuse can happen in many places. It's also possible that abuse would happen in the nursery. So this policy has two reasons. Two people, two reasons. First reason is if there are two people, then the child is protected. If there's one bad person, the other person will see and stop it. So it makes it impossible, or almost impossible, for one person to hurt and to abuse the children, because there's someone else. They're not on their own, they can't do it. The other reason is if children say really amazing things and also crazy things, like, my mummy ate the moon yesterday. I've heard a child say that before. She was hungry, so she ate the moon. Now probably that mother was eating some cheese that had holes in it, and they made a joke about it looking like the moon, and they had a nice little story about the moon. But what the child has said is, my mother ate the moon, which is impossible. So children say things that are impossible. There's a reason why they're saying it, and often it's linked to something that's real. But maybe what they've said is impossible. And so sometimes children will say, the teacher hurt me. And if the parent comes very angry and says, my child said the teacher hurt me, and you're on your own with the child, how can you be protected? The child has said one thing, and there's no one else to say the opposite. With a two-person policy, you always have a witness. And then we can say, and then maybe the teacher goes, no. We told the child not to hurt the other children. We explain it because this child was frustrated and was snatching, and so the teacher said, don't hurt the other children. And then this child cried. So they went home and they said, oh, the teacher hurt me, but it's different, it's a different story. Because there's a witness, we can give more information. And the parent can calm down and go, oh yeah, that makes sense. I understand. But if you say that story, do they believe you? Do they not believe you? The witness, much easier to believe the witness. So this protects you and it protects the children. Oof. Are we ready? So I'm going to ask you a question. And you're going to ask you all the same question. And you're going to look at the camera. Let's look at that camera, one by one, and just answer the question. So, Yuan, what is safeguarding? What does it mean?
Safeguarding is our teacher should protect our children away from the abuse. We have 4 abuse: physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, and emotional abuse. If I find something is wrong, I should tell my colleagues and my roommates or manager.
Perfect. The perfect answer is also to tell the safeguarding officer. I didn't say that earlier, but probably the best answer, if I'm worried, I tell the safeguarding officer. Yeah? Great, so what is safeguarding?
Safeguarding is for the teachers to protect children away from abuse. There are 4 areas of abuse: physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. And if you have any worries about these 4 areas, you need to tell the safeguarding officers and your colleagues at the same time.
Perfect answer. What is safeguarding?
Safeguarding is protect children from abuse, and they have 4 areas of abuse: physical abuse, neglect, and sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. If there have some, we have some. These 4 abuse worries. We should tell the office and the room leader as soon as possible.
Perfect. Well done. So what is safeguarding?
Safeguarding is protecting children from abuse. There are 4 areas of abuse: sexual abuse, neglect, emotional abuse, and physical abuse. If we found something wrong, we can share our concerns to the safeguarding officers.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
So what is safeguarding?
Safeguarding is protect the children from 4 areas of abuse: emotional abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, and physical abuse. Sorry. If I find something is wrong, I worry about it, I will talk to my safeguarding officer or room leader.
Perfect. Well done. Oh, how nice to hear lots of right answers. Great, thank you very much. So that's the first one. This is safeguarding. Do you have any questions? No? Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much for your help on this one. I'm probably going. Safeguarding, we have discussed how we want to protect the children from abuse, and there are the 4 areas of abuse. One of the areas is sexual abuse, and we talked about children having too much information about sex, something that we might notice from home. But it is possible also for sexual abuse to happen in a nursery. That's why we have the 2-person policy. Do you remember the 2-person policy?
Yeah.
Great. And one of the other things is that we must not have our mobile phones inside the classrooms. So the nurseries everywhere in England have a no mobile phone policy. And the reason is that on your phones you have cameras, and we don't know what pictures some people might take. And so it is forbidden to have mobile phones in the classroom. We have a couple of exceptions for the directors, for example, for me, because I always work in different places. If somebody needs to phone me, my job means I need to be at the nursery sometimes, and I need to speak to people. So we have a policy that is written, you'll read it, and it says that I'm allowed to use my phone, but I'm not allowed to change a nappy, for example, and I cannot help the children in the toilets. Because if I wanted to take bad pictures, probably it would be when I change a nappy or in the toilet. So, but for nearly everyone else, everyone else, including the parents, they're not allowed to use, and you're not allowed to use mobile phones in the nursery. So I've told you today, and probably the manager will tell you. And then on the piece of paper where you sign in every day, and the same piece of paper where the parents sign, it says no mobile phones. And there should be a sign somewhere in the nursery that says no mobile phones. So that's a very, very important rule. And if you see someone using their phone, you must tell them not to use their phone. And you should tell the manager.
You see that often because sometimes the parents, they forget and someone calls them when they're in the lobby. So they pick up, and you will see a teacher or Mary say, I'm sorry, but you cannot use your phone.
And one more, when we do the outdoor activities, when we walk along the street, if someone wants to take pictures for the children, you have to stop them. Yeah.
Does it happen a lot?
Yes, because our children are so lovely.
Yeah, that's right. Do you want to do whistleblowing?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, but it's not going to be in Chinese. 1, 2, 3, 4, there's only 3. It's quite a short one though, so maybe you can say it in English.
Yeah. So, whistleblowing, it's to know that your job is safe if you report anything you think it's illegal practice or anything you find wrong in the nursery. So basically, it applies to the nursery, but it's something you have in your everyday life as comment tu dis citoyen?
As a citizen.
As a citizen. So if you find something you think is wrong, like if you find something in a nursery, like you're worried about something, and you tell your room leader and nothing happened, and you tell your manager and nothing happened, no change, you can contact Philippe, you can contact myself, so it's the directors, and say, I'm worried, I think this is not the best way to do it, and maybe it's not safe for the children or for the other member of staff. And your job is protect. So nothing will happen to your position in the nursery. And if nothing happens, if you tell the directors, you can go to the local authority, you can go to the police and explain that you are worried about something and your job is still safe.
Yeah. So, an example maybe with the nursery, maybe it's difficult to find an example, maybe. But if you imagine a factory's making something, and they have toxic chemicals, and really they should pay a special company to take away the dangerous chemicals, but it's expensive. So instead they put it in a river. So that is illegal, and probably it happens a lot everywhere in the world. So this law, whistleblowing, is to protect your job. So you can tell your boss, you go, we shouldn't do that. And maybe the boss goes, it's not your problem. So the problem is still there, and he says, don't worry, but you can see it's terrible. Maybe children will get sick, maybe some will die, maybe fish will be killed. No, it's illegal to put dangerous chemicals in the river. So now you go to the police. Now, in the old days, in history, the police, maybe they investigate, and maybe you lose your job. And so because people were worried of losing their job, they didn't say anything. So whistleblowing is the opposite. It's you have a responsibility to tell your manager if you see it's wrong, you go, this is wrong. And hopefully they fix it. But if they don't fix it, and you see it's still a problem, so we ask you to tell your manager and then to tell us, the directors, well, anyone in head office.
Just got promoted.
and then we should do something. And if we don't do anything and it's still bad, then you can go to the police, and your job is safe and your visa is safe, and because what's important is that we protect the children. And so it's important that we have a proper system that allows you to tell us if something is wrong. Like if you think there is a machine like an air conditioning that is dangerous, that you tell us, and then we tell someone to repair it.
Okay, so we've already talked about whistleblowing, which means that if you see any illegal practice in the nursery, you can report it and you know your position is secure and protected. There is a good illustration of this kind of law. So it happened in a nursery a while ago, and one of the teachers used to use his phone often in the nursery, and the other teacher could see her doing that. And like we said, you cannot use your phone in the nursery, it's illegal. But this teacher, she used it, and she was also a friend of the manager,
So maybe the other teacher, they were a little bit scared of telling to the manager that this person was doing something illegal because she was her friend. They didn't know, so no one tell anything. And in the end, it happened that this person, she also used his phone to take pictures of the children, and she was selling this picture on the internet to some bad website for people who are sexually interested by children. So she was clearly abusing children, but because the other teachers, they didn't know, they were a little bit scared, they didn't know if they could say that to the manager, they were scared for their job. No one say anything. So this example, it can show you that if you see something illegal, you have to tell it, even if it's your room leader, even if it's someone friends to you will be new to the nursery. All the other teachers, they already know each other. So you can feel that it's a little bit weird for you to tell something about someone else, but it's not, and you have to, it's your duty. And if you do it, your job is protected and your position is safe.
Yeah.
And it's for the safety of the children. It's paramount, it's the first thing that should come.
That's exactly it. So this example, it wasn't our nursery. It was another nursery. It was maybe 10 years ago, and it was in Plymouth, which is in the southwest of the UK. So it was a very different nursery, but it was terrible what happened, and the police had to get involved, and it was a big story. And one of the lessons, so when the police and everyone, the professionals, reviewed what happened, one of the things they realized is that the staff were not whistleblowing. And what happened then is the reason why now we teach about whistleblowing. Because before, whistleblowing, the laws existed, but people didn't talk about it. We didn't do training on it. And they realized if we don't do training on whistleblowing, then maybe you don't have the confidence to tell us. You think, oh, I think it's strange, I don't want any problems, I'll just say nothing. And if everyone is quiet and says nothing, then the children could be at risk. So instead, we now train about whistleblowing so that you know, oh, if I see it, it's important that I tell. And it doesn't matter if it's the best friend of the manager or somebody higher than me and I'm new, doesn't matter. The priority in a nursery is to protect the children. And so maybe if someone uses their mobile phone, it's a mistake. But you should tell the manager, because maybe you see it once, but maybe other people see it, maybe several people have seen it. So actually maybe this person uses their mobile phone a lot. Why are they using their mobile phone? Is it for a good reason? Are they being distracted? And if maybe it's just text message to my friend, but if I'm doing text message to my friend, I'm not checking the children. Are they safe? Or am I taking pictures? And that is definitely illegal for me to take pictures on my personal mobile phone. So we talk about teamwork. Teamwork is also about protecting each other. And if one person is doing something wrong, are we protecting each other? Are we protecting the children? No. So it's better just to speak and say, I saw this, maybe it's no problem, but I saw this and I don't think it's right. And then the manager can act. And if she doesn't, and you're still dangerous, you're still worried, you can tell me or Pauline, or you can tell Ofsted, or you can tell the police. Okay, that's it.
This is about the health safety, and health safety is
Sorry, in English people say health and safety.
health and safety, and health and safety is about keep children and staff safe from physical dangers. There are 5 physical dangers. For example, child-sized food. Child-sized food, for example, she told us, for example, give us an example. For example, we do the practice to use the little bean, little bean to practice, but some child don't know whether it can eat or not. Just take it into their mouths. But this is very dangerous, so we should pay attention. And allergies. Some children have allergies with milk and cheese and many food. So we have to remember and separate.
Yeah.
And
So we pronounce it allergy.
allergies.
Allergies.
Allergies. And crossing the road, when we are crossing the road, we should hold the hands, hand by hands, and just keeping the and look both sides. And some dangerous equipments, for example, the electric lines, and don't allow the children go into the kitchen and pay and be careful the hot water and trip hazards. Trip hazards. When we go out, we should not only look after the children, and we should, but at the same time we should look at the passengers if they have some strange people, and we have to look. We should look the children's clothes and keep memory and keep record what's the children's clothes and health and safety. How to do the health and safety? Here are some tips, and we should pay attention on the first act. This is very important. Okay, so sorry, my phone is ringing. I don't know why. Oh, then sorry. Sorry to disturb. Okay, that's all.
Okay, perfect. So, on that first one that we did the safeguarding, there were 4 areas of abuse. The other ones, we don't count them, they're just examples. So these are just some examples for health and safety. On our example, we've got 5, but if there was more space, I could give you 10 or 20 or 100. Health and safety is a really big, because many things can be dangerous. And here we've just chosen some examples. And so many things can be dangerous. So one of the most important things we should be is be aware and vigilant. To really look and see, how is it? And in the classroom, maybe the cleaner left something dangerous. Maybe she left a strong bottle of cleaning product open. The cleaners come every night, and maybe they didn't put away the bottle. Or maybe a teacher was doing an activity with big, dangerous scissors because there were no children, but then the telephone rang and the teacher left and the scissors are still in the classroom. We have little children's scissors, not big adult scissors. So just look, and if you think that's strange, the question is it strange and dangerous? If you think maybe it's dangerous, do something. Even though you're new, maybe you notice something that the other teacher didn't see. So tell the other teacher, is that okay? And the other teacher, oh! And then you can protect the children. So be vigilant. Anything.
And don't think like someone else will do it or someone else is about to do it. So because sometimes it can happen that he will stay like a whole morning, like the scissors or something like this. Because every person thinks, oh, because someone is about to do something with it or is doing something with it, so I don't want to disturb. Or...
So if you see it, please disturb. If you think it's dangerous, of course, the safety, the health and safety of the children is the most important thing. So so we do a risk assessment. And we do a safety check every morning. Somebody goes round and there's a checklist. Have you ever done it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a checklist in the morning that we check. Is there enough? So it's a mixture. Some things about safety and some things are just useful. Like toilet paper is useful. Probably there's health there as well. And some things we're checking for danger. So we do that. And then if we go to the park, we check, we look. Because were there some drunk people yesterday? Is there broken glass? Were there drug addicts? And there's a needle on the floor. If you're in a park, that's possible. We look. Is it safe? Is it not safe? And then if we're crossing the road, we look. There's something coming. So that sort of obvious safety is our responsibility. And even though you're new, it's also your responsibility. And then we use forms. So we showed you the existing injury form already. We have many forms. If we go to the park, we have a form. Please use the forms because we have the important questions on it. And maybe you can't find it, then everyone waits until we find the right form. It's okay, maybe it's difficult, but it's important we use the right form instead of a piece of paper, because maybe there's a question that you forgot, that on the form you won't forget it. And then if you see something, just take action and tell someone. So that's health and safety. We have one more. Oh, and then we have later in your training, I don't know when in the training, maybe it's now. C'était maintenant, tu crois? Oui.
Ça dépend si tu veux faire ça ou juste à montrer et après.
So we'll just show you now, and you'll read it maybe later.
Yeah.
But we have a whole school risk assessment. Each school has one. And so we've tried to think of all the examples that could be dangerous, that we know. So we'll give this to you, we'll print it to you, and then we'll go through it so that you've read it and understood. So we have just as an example, if it's raining, then maybe the children will fall over. It's silly, but just so that doesn't mean that we just stay inside, no, but it means we're aware. So if it's raining, we tell the children not to run outside, even if there's a park or playground, because it's slippery. And if we're going up or downstairs, it's slippery if it's raining. So always we must be careful, but we need to be more careful. So with some risks, our policy is not to make 0 risk, because if you have no risks, then you can't learn anything, you can't grow. Like life has risks, we have to teach children how to be careful. With health and safety, there's also the teaching of helping the children learn how to be safe, because they need to grow up to be able to be responsible for themselves. So our aim is not 0 risk, but no big risks. So we have to be like, for example, running, even if it's sunny, there's a risk with running. You can always fall and you could hurt your head. But children also need to learn how to run. So there's the health and safety, and then there's teaching children. We don't want the children to run by the road, because they fall in the road. That's just too dangerous. But falling in a park is not so dangerous if it's in a safe place. So health and safety is very important to keep the children safe. But we try to manage the risks, we don't try to eliminate the risks. Do you understand the difference? How would you say we try to manage the risks, not eliminate all the risks in Chinese?
明白意思吗？他的意思就是把那个风险
降到最低，
它不是要消除风险，而是要掌控风险。
Because you have great level of English. I don't know the people watching the video how good their English is. There are very good examples here. So once we've finished the training, we'll ask you to read all of this. And maybe we video the reply as well. Okay? British values. Do we have time? Are we tied? Takes about 10 minutes, I suppose. Should we finish it? That would be nice to finish. Okay, good. So this is also, I don't know how I feel about this one, especially to explain it to people from a different culture, because we want to celebrate British culture and French culture and Chinese culture and other cultures as well. I think it's very important to do that, and that is one of our values. However, the law specifically says we must do this. So if it was my choice, I would do this a little bit differently.
The President's duty and British values, it means teach British values to protect children from radicalization.
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 Radicalization, very good.
Okay, and the risk of radicalization, including extremism and terrorism. And the extremism, it means racial.
Like some words about
Yes.
racism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Extremism, it could be, for example, all white people should be killed.
Yeah, just said that.
And the terrorism, you can find some terrorism when you play make the role play. If a child sees some words like guns, and okay, someone is killed, or some organization about it, yeah.
So I
Then
think
you should. Oh, sorry.
so with terrorism, it's children might play with guns or see films, which is sort of, it happens, it's normal.
Yes.
But really, it's about those organisations, about joining an organisation that wants to destroy
Okay.
a civilization or something, or people.
And there's something about British values. And first one, she said D.R.I.M. It's simple. It's easier to remember, I think.
Yes.
D, democracy. It means equal and share with your friends and share. And R, maybe it's the
Rule and law.
yeah, rule and law. In the nursery, we have the golden rule, right? And children should learn to follow the rules. And I is the individual liberty. It means children can choose choose their interesting activity. Can decide do what they like. Okay, sorry. And M is mutual respect. This means they will respect each other and teachers, and even if they go outdoors, they should respect the other people. Okay. And then promote British values in practice. In the as the activities in the nursery, I think there are many practice about they can choose which they are interested in and practice.
I think the promoting, so we have these 4 areas, the D.R.I.M, so democracy, rule of law, individual liberty and mutual respect. And this next one, promote, means that it's our responsibility to teach these values in the nursery.
Okay.
And then also assess risks and share concerns. So if we hear a child talking,
we should.
then it's not abuse, it's different. We're hearing them talk about terrorism or something. then we have a legal responsibility to tell the manager about it, or the safeguarding officer. So this one's interesting because the other ones, it's about protecting children. So the risks, the lightning, the main focus is on this, and then what we do to help reduce these risks. This one is similar, except it's about teaching British values. So there's this big emphasis on the D.R.I.M. There are those risks, but the focus is on the teaching. Whilst the other one, the focus is on the risk and what we do to reduce the risk. Whilst here, the focus is on the teaching. It's interesting because this is a very, very young age group. If you are in the bunnies or penguins, it seems almost impossible to teach these.
But you can have some simple example. For example, for mutual respect, you see that in the nursery we celebrate all the like the festival and religious events. So it is a way of showing the respect to all the culture and communities in London. So.
And the same respect for boys and for girls. We know in some cultures girls have less rights and are not treated equally. So we treat the boys and the girls the same. It doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl, if you want to play with a doll, or if you want to do a construction. It makes no difference to us if you're a boy or a girl. So we also show that mutual respect. And yeah, that's a very good example. And then individual liberty, I think you said the children or people can do whatever they like. There are also limits. So I can't kill you or I can't hurt you. So it's not total freedom, but there is still individual liberty. I can say what I believe, for example, and I can say I don't like it, for example. So children can say I don't like it. So it's liberty, like in that sense. It doesn't mean that if a child wants to hit another child, that they can do that, or if they want to stand on a table at lunchtime. No, they can't do that. So it's not total liberty, but it's individual liberty with responsibilities as well. And then the rule of law, I'm kind of doing these backwards. The rule of law, I suppose like a little bit in classroom we have rules as well. So we were just talking about individual liberty, and there are also rules. So we respect the rules, and we've got the golden rules, which are really positive. So those two go very well together. And democracy, it's allowing people to choose. So I suppose with children, maybe they choose which book they want to look at, for example. That would be an example. It's not just, I have decided and you will do it. So we still have mutual respect, we still have classroom rules, but we're helping to teach children to choose at this age. That's the most we can really do for democracy. And to listen to them. So if they say they don't like it, we don't do it again and again. It's a little bit. It's a little bit of mutual respect, a little bit of liberty. It's also a little bit of democracy. So there we go. Those are our 4 different areas. And there is a training on prevent duty.
Yes.
And health and safety.
Yeah, a bigger one.
A bigger one. So everything except whistleblowing, there is online training. So you will hear about this again, and we will often ask you questions about this, because you need to be confident to be able to talk about it.
And maybe I think during the safeguarding training they should talk a little bit about prevent duty and British values.
Often the training is safeguarding, and it's different, but often the training comes a bit together on the same day, like today, explaining all of them. Do you have any questions? And remember, you'll have training on them. You should know them off by heart. It will also be in the classroom. So if an inspector asks you, and you're nervous, please go to the poster. It's much easier to explain. And we put the Chinese, so like, no matter how nervous you are, you can see what it means, remember what it means, and then talk about it.
And I want to know if they'll have a list about this illegal
practice?
Yeah, there's no list.
No
So
list.
maybe you don't know if it's illegal, but if really in a nursery it's about being safe.
Yeah.
So if you think something is not safe, for example, you will do a health and safety training. So if you see a training and then you don't do it, and then you talk to your room leader, and you talk to your manager, and they don't do anything, and you tell us, and we go, oh, you know, it doesn't matter, it's not dangerous. But you think it's dangerous, and you've spoken to me, and you're worried, and I'm not worried, and no one else is worried, but you are worried, then you can tell the police, and your job is safe. But we don't really have a list. But if you think this is, one rule I can tell you is health and safety. You must keep the children safe.
Yeah.
So if you think that we're not keeping the children safe, that's a legal practice. That's probably the biggest example. Est-ce que c'est illégal ou pas?
Non, mais si on ne fait rien,
Voilà.
c'est dangereux pour les enfants.
So, for example, a teacher told us that we have an egg and we have a ventilation, and she said that it was not cleaned properly, and she's worried about it. So, hopefully, she tells the manager first, and if the manager does nothing, then she tells me. It's also possible to tell me directly. So that's also fine. Maybe you're embarrassed to tell the manager, or maybe you're writing me an email, and maybe I send you an email with a question, and you give me an answer, and then you think, oh, I've remembered this, I'll tell you. So it's also okay to tell me directly. So there's ventilation, and it looked as if it wasn't working properly. So what I do is I'll probably arrange for it to be repaired or cleaned, or if you think there's not enough air and you're really worried about it, it is possible for you to tell someone else about it later. So I tell it, maybe I don't repair it. They go, it's expensive. I'm too busy and it's expensive, and I don't clean it. And you think the children are getting sick because the air is bad, then if you're so worried, you can tell someone. But probably we'll fix it, because my priority is high quality. It'd be much easier for me not to have a Mandarin program, for example. I really want to have the very best quality. So if there is something and you tell me, if I'm worried, I will fix it. And if I'm not worried, I should be able to explain why it's not dangerous or why it's not a problem. But I'm also human, I can also make a mistake. So if you think I'm wrong, tell me. Like really, I want to make it better. This, you need to know, but probably if there's a problem, I will fix it, or I'll try to get it fixed as quickly as possible. But so if I'm wrong, just tell me. I don't believe you, or I think there's a problem. Just tell me again, and that's okay. Just because I'm the director, I really want what's best for the children. So maybe you tell me 2-3 times in the same conversation, or tomorrow say, I thought about your answer. I don't like it. There's still a problem. It's okay to tell me, your job is safe. And really my priority is quality. So I can only really have quality if people tell me if there's a problem. And maybe I didn't understand the problem properly. Maybe I didn't understand. So just explain it again. Or show me. Maybe, I had an example. There was someone who told me there was a leak, water was dripping. He said, there's a, and I remember thinking, I've seen that. Sometimes when it's a little in the morning, if the nursery, it was cold, and then the hot water comes, and maybe the pipe is cold, and then there's the hot water. Maybe there's do you know condensation? Condensation. If you get it on the windows, on a cold day, you see it on the window, like steam, and then maybe it drips. And so someone told me there's a drip, and I was like, oh yeah, I've seen that. And I was like, don't worry, it's just condensation. It's just because it's cold outside, and it's not a problem. And then a week later they said, no, like it's bad. And I was like, it's bad. And I had a look, and there was like water underneath. It was a leak. It wasn't condensation. But before, in the same place, I had seen condensation. I didn't realise it was a problem. So of course, If I say it's not a problem, but it's a problem, tell me. Maybe I'm thinking, or the manager is thinking of the wrong thing. Show them, say, look, this is what I mean. Go, oh, okay, now I understand. And if we see, go, we don't care, then tell someone else. Yeah?
Thank you.
Any other questions? Have you had any worries about these things?
No
Okay,
worries.
great. Thank you.
Yeah.